Hello, ladies and gentlemen, as there are only ladies and gentlemen. This is episode 2 of the Uniquely Unqualified Podcast. And we've got a few topics to get going on today. I'm going to weigh in on my opinion, solely opinion, of the Epstein files, along with Iran, something going on in Maryland, Ronda Rousey, whom I'm not actually a fan of. And then I've got a funny little story off of X that I'll bring in. So before we get started, thank you for everybody that subscribes. If you haven't subscribed, please. It means nearly nothing to you, but it means everything to me. Um, Click like and subscribe to the Uniquely Unqualified channel. Thank you again for being here. First subject is the Epstein files. So I don't think that we are going to see very much else coming out of the Epstein files. I think that I think that it creates too much of a problem for uh, very recent administrations, the current administration, all of the United States elected officials, maybe not all of them. Well, it'll create a problem for all of them. However, I do not believe that all of them are implicated at all. Um, U.S. are politicians are a very interesting breed of human in them of themselves. I believe that there are some good ones, but I believe most of them are shills. I do not believe that they are qualified to be holding office um, at all whatsoever. Even some that once upon a time was a political hero of mine, Congressman Crenshaw, Dan Crenshaw. He's the guy that was a Navy SEAL and wears an eye patch. He was also one of the first people in Congress to say that the United States should invade Mexico and fight the cartels. That is an awful idea. We know from our efforts in Iraq and moreover in Afghanistan, the country of Mexico is more topographically akin to Afghanistan. That was not a success for the United States. If you have any question to that, just look at who is running Afghanistan after our billions and billions of dollars and 20 years spent in Afghanistan. Um, anyway, I would I would venture to say that most U.S. politicians are basically high school prom kings and queens. A lot of them, even if they went to college and claim to have degrees, living inside of academia and living inside of politic is not experience. That is an experience, but it is not, in my opinion, a qualifying experience that allows you to make rules for the masses. You're very disconnected. You don't understand what it means to wake up at 4 a.m., get to an office or a job site by 6, work your knuckles into the dirt for 10 to 12 hours, be it a labor job, a crappy office job that you're just trying to raise your kids off of. These people have no idea what that's like and what that's about. I think the majority of them are just enriching themselves. I'll get to this later, but I really appreciate what's coming out of the Epstein files and how some European countries are beginning to handle this. I appreciate that. I like it a lot. We'll see how far that goes. A lot of this could be very performative. However, You know, I think that many current U.S. bureaucrats and politicians are directly implicated in this. And when I say implicated, I would like to I would like to put forward that they've done something wrong. It certainly seems like there's plenty of people mentioned in the Epstein files that never met him. They were only mentioned in email, etc. So that doesn't implicate them. They are just in the files. But I think a very large amount of U.S. politicians and bureaucrats that specifically take money from AIPAC, the Israel lobby, I think that, and there's a lot of them. I think that they are, um, it would ruin their lives essentially, as it should. It should absolutely ruin their lives. They deserve for their lives to be ruined if they are implicated in any wrongdoing or any um, um, crimes committed under Jeffrey Epstein. Um, World elites are very much the same. Um, well, I'm sorry. Let me backtrack and kind of go on further with my explanation of how I view most U.S. politicians and world elites. But this is a lot of U.S. politicianry. When I say that they're just a bunch of prom kings and queens, you look at an AOC, for example. I mentioned this on the first episode that uh, I believe she is not qualified to hold office. I believe that we should have a qualifying standard in order for you to run for office. You don't just get to be a um, Seattle mayor that lived in the basement of her parents' house and never had a job and then be elected. You shouldn't be allowed to do that. You shouldn't be a Zoran Mamdani and allowed to be elected. You're not allowed to do that. You shouldn't be allowed to do that. You have to have a qualifier. And a qualifier of a slightly lesser bureaucratic position doesn't qualify you, in my opinion. You have to have owned a business, had a job, raised a family, be a real person, be somebody with something with some substance to you. And AOC being a cocktail waitress, bartender, whatever she was, um, you know, that's not a qualifier for running the quote most powerful country in the world. And I do not believe she should be in that position whatsoever. Neither should Jasmine Crockett. Jasmine Crockett, I believe, has a Juris Doctorate, which means she's a lawyer. But that holding the title of college graduate does not excuse you from the action of dipshit. Uh, Calling yourself a lawyer and never litigating anything or spending any time in court doesn't make you a lawyer. My college degree is in political science. I'm not a reporter. I am not a pundit. I uh, got pretty lucky in my life, and I got to go travel and live in other places. And just because I have a degree of political science and economics, that does not qualify me to hold any professional position necessarily. It's a foot in the door, but it doesn't qualify me. I got a very good education. I don't really do much but have opinions about the political issues that I like to talk about because I don't really care much um, to really dive deep into the nitty gritty of the evil that would probably stir me up even worse than I am already stirred up. So I look at what's going on. I take a cursory glance if it's interesting to me. I dig deeper and I find out what's really happening. Um, and I think that I have a decent opinion. I can talk to most people. Anyway, so that's my opinion on the U.S. politicians. Is um, they're a very large amount of them. Not only are they just not qualified for the job, but dumb people are very easily controlled. And so I think that this is what the Epstein files is about. I think that all of the redacted names are probably household names. And um, they're, side note, the Justice Department said that they were going to redact the names of victims. Meanwhile, I'm sure that they have redacted the names of victims, but they're also redacted the names of co-conspirators if they, according to Pam Bondi, mistakenly redacted one name. How many other names did they mistakenly redact? And what makes the sender of an email about comporting with Jeffrey Epstein about parties, possibly drugs, sex, abuse of minors, what makes that individual sending the email a victim? They're not, they're a perpetrator, and they're probably hold some level of importance in the United States government. And so that's where we're kind of at with that. World elites, like I said, we're kind of looking at um, how Europe is starting to look. I think France yesterday or today started some kind of an investigation um, into an individual. Um, but you have what is his name? Leslie Wexner. Leslie Wexner is the Victoria's Secret guy. Um, when I found out about Leslie Wexner, Les Wexner, I I guess I just would have automatically assumed that the world's premier sexiest lingerie company was just owned by a woman, not some crinkly old Bernie Sanders looking man. Anyway, I digress. Anyway, world elites are implicated in these Jeffrey Epstein files as well, and these are going to include people that run the internet, people that run apps, people that run social media, people that run giant industry, car companies, um, compute manufacturing companies. I mean, this rolls and this runs so incredibly deep, and I understand that everybody's really upset about it, and rightfully so. And I really feel as though um, we'll get into this in a few more minutes, but I really feel as though we need to do something about it. So Prince Andrew um, was arrested, not handcuffed, but arrested. I wrote his name down here. It's a former prince, now I suppose, former Prince Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. That is former Prince Andrew's name. Anyway, he is seen in many images and videos in the Epstein files, and I think that the royal family found out about this and said, homie, you are getting lynched. We have to disown you. We have to disqualify you. This is evil, evil, evil stuff, and you cannot be allowed to walk freely, having committed these evil crimes, these bad things. And that's where I like where Europe is starting to handle this. I don't know if European folks, the the regular people have access to the Epstein files the same as we do here in the United States. The European governments definitely work much different from the way that the United States works. Um, but it seems to me that they're going to start going after some of these people that are outside of the United States. Certainly, the U.S. Uh, you know, AG Pam Bondi, she knows whose names have been redacted. Congress, I believe, knows whose names have been redacted. And the European governments and courts also know whose names have been redacted. I do not know if, again, if European people have access as directly to the Epstein files as we do in America. However, they, at the very least, their governments and judiciary are starting to do something about it. Now, it could be performative. This could be this could just be, throw a couple people under the bus, call it a day. We got them. Moving on. Certainly hope not. That would be an absolute travesty, because I would like to see this rot be completely squashed. I would like to see this rot completely taken away. So I think that kind of goes into why the U.S. isn't investigating or prosecuting. I believe that the uh, Justice Department has proven incompetence in their handling of this whole thing, which is why I would assume that most of the co-conspirators and the perpetrators in the Epstein files are American, influential Americans, uh, because if Europe has the ability to start prosecuting and arresting some of these people, but no one in America, no American politicians have been arrested for anything yet. This is the Epstein files crime, 2.0, is not investigating or prosecuting. So we have Donald Trump mentioned in the Epstein files, and every member of the View, uh, and I'm gonna pick on those ladies for just a hot second. My mother watches The View, and it is a problem. These women on The View are very. I'm sure that some of them can read, write, and do math, but I do not believe that any of them are very intelligent. Their takes on things are very stupid. So, first, you have Whoopi Goldberg, who is an abhorrent human being. She's an affront on humanity. So is uh, the rest of them. Um, but she is the worst of them. And Joy Behar is up there, but Whoopi Goldberg talks excuse me, but way too fucking much. She talks way too much, and she talks out the side of her neck, and she is uh, wrong all the time. Uh, show me something. Somebody put something in the comments, the video of Whoopi Goldberg uh, with a correct hot take on some crap that she's spewing. So initially, she conveniently forgets all the conversations that she had, email or phone call wise, directed towards Jeffrey Epstein. She completely forgets about that to completely bash the President of the United States. And again, like I said in the first episode, we need to absolutely stop doing that. People of influence must stop creating division within our nation about the President of the United States. They need to stop. It doesn't matter if you agree with him or disagree with him. He is, in fact, the president. Nothing is going to change that. Your opinion, your feeling, nothing will change that unless there is a serious crime committed, of which there isn't one. And if there was, he would have been impeached again. All of this, yada, yada, yada. So all of these opinions about negativity on the President of the United States are unfounded and they need to stop. So Whoopi Goldberg sits there and says, oh, Donald Trump, what a pedophile and all. Maybe he is. I don't know. But then all of a sudden, an episode or two later, this bitch is going on The View saying, well, I was in the Epstein files, and just because you're in the Epstein files doesn't mean you did anything wrong. Okay, Whoopi, well, that means that just because Donald Trump is in there doesn't mean he did anything wrong. You cannot have your cake and eat it too, you abhorrent human being. Same thing with the rest of the cackling hens on that show. They are the worst, and they propagandize people like my mother and other quasi-retired, housewives, boomers. They just flood their heads with trash, and these people that watch it take it to the bank, and then that's actually what causes the division in families and friends. Is not because me with a conservative lean wants to be mean to them. It's because when we start to have a conversation and the person watching these influencers that are just wrongfully opinionated about something, that people like audience members of The View take what they have to say to the bank, and then a more rational, more educated and informed human being goes to them and says, well, actually, none of that's true. And then the person that watches The View thinks that you're alienating them and their show that they like to watch. And then it's like, oh, you're a son of a bitch. You're a racist. You're a bigot. How dare you pick on a black woman, Whoopi Goldberg. I got it. My fun thing at the end is actually about a black woman who's absolutely pointed on something that she says. It was really funny. Like I said, saw it on X. So anyway, we're currently, I don't think that we will ever see prosecution or investigation, most specifically under the Trump administration. And I think that might probably be because there is some misconduct on Donald J. Trump's part, and that can be exposed in the Epstein files. I'm not saying Whoopi Goldberg is correct. I'm just saying that, she's an idiot for sticking her foot in her mouth too soon, trying to say something that, oh, this guy, he's in there, he's guilty as sin. But I'm in there and I'm not. Okay, well, they're begging and pleading a rich white Epstein Jewish man to use his airplane is a pretty shitty move. And then years and years and years later, you take a racial stance about how there's, racism and bad white people in the country. It's a disgusting way to be noticed, and it's a disgusting position to put out there into the zeitgeist. Anyway, so that's them. But as far as the Justice Department, shame on Pam Bondi and shame on Kash Patel. These two are clowns. I'm sure that Pam Bondi did a great job in Florida. I didn't do enough, I don't care enough to know where Kash Patel comes from, to be completely honest with you. He's just kind of a bro, is basically what he is. He likes optics. Um, I don't know if he's really running the show over there, but he really isn't. If nothing else, he is very bad in front of the camera. He is very bad in questioning. He has bad answers. Pam Bondi, when she was um, in that, I think it was a Senate hearing, and she was getting roasted by, I think, Thomas Massey, who's a good one. I think Thomas Massey's a good one. Um, when when she comes with zero receipts and then wants to start talking about the stock market and people's retirement portfolios, that's not what any of us care about in this situation. Even people with retirement portfolios where the Dow uh, um, bolsters their portfolio. I want to know who is implicated, what happened, what is this trap door, this chute that goes from some room in the mansion on Epstein Island that goes down to the ocean. Why was what was that, the sodium chloride or bicarbonate, something that could be used as a desalination chemical for water. Um, I believe that Jeffrey Epstein had ordered this before, but it was in a very small amount. And then he orders multiple drums full of this stuff. And one of the main reasons you use sodium chloride is to dissolve a body and then dump it down the chute so it goes to the ocean. I'm not saying that that's what happened. It just seems like that could be an option. Anyway, um, where was I going with this? Um, right, Pam Bondi and Kash Patel. So these two are um, months ago. Pam Bondi had something like, she said, tens of thousands of files, hours and hours of videos of children being abused. Uh, Paperwork that implicated very powerful, very well-known people, the likes of former presidents, uh, tech billionaires, actors, scientists, Middle East leaders, European leaders. We need to know. The public has an absolute right to know. And I think this is what I wanted most of my point to be here. I do not believe that if you release everything, investigate and prosecute, let's be extreme and say 50% of sitting U.S. officials, elected or unelected, 50% of them are implicated in crimes in Jeffrey Epstein. Let's say. This is not the case. We don't know, but let's say. The Justice Department would have to weigh the options about uh, prosecuting. And I think that they would weigh the option into no, because, oh my gosh, this is going to collapse the United States government. Well, good, frankly. Um, it wouldn't collapse it entirely, but it would remove the bad apples from the cart so that there's no more rot None of the other apples, at least in this circumstance, will rot. You're getting all of the bad shit out so that the good stuff can flourish. There's a lot of money that is not going to allow that to happen. But I do not believe that the economy would tank. I do not believe that businesses would shut their doors. People wouldn't go to work if 50% of the government disappeared in something like a RICO case overnight. I think that the people that hold position in all three branches of the government have such an ego that they think that their positions are so damned important that if any of them were to lose their positions, oh my gosh, we're going to collapse. No, you wouldn't, because it's not what you guys in the government do that make this country go round. It's what the citizens do. It's what the small business owners do. It's what the moms do, the dads do, the truck drivers do, the delivery drivers do, the convenience store folks, the Starbucks baristas. None of you people do anything for the folks and the customers that in the government. None of you people in the government do anything for the common working person that wakes up at the same time, 5 to 6 days a week, more if you've got multiple jobs, go to work, make your paycheck, feed your kids, pay your bills, go see a movie, go for a hike, walk in the park, whatever you do. Um, you'd want to go to the gym. The gym ain't gonna close. Your currency isn't gonna collapse because you're not tanking the stock market. There's certainly businesses that would collapse because their CEOs are implicated. But again, they wouldn't collapse. Their stock would drop greatly, but they would just put a new CEO in and the business would continue to run. It would be a speed bump. It would be a hiccup. And I don't think that it would last that damn long. It would certainly last less than COVID, less time than COVID. I think that these people need to be brought to, I hate to use the word justice generically because it's almost like calling Trump it's almost like calling Trump Hitler. It's just we need justice. Well, fucking what does that look like? So but these people need to be brought to justice, and um, let's even propose an idea here. Here's a good thought experiment. Back when the um, what was it? The Union of Socialist Soviet Republics, the USSR. Back when that political Russian regime fell, you know, all of those communists and socialists basically just bled all of Russia dry. And there at the end, in the late 80s, they all knew that the jig was up. They all knew that they were just going to sit back and take whatever was left, sip on their expensive vodka, and eat their caviar. And instead of throwing them all in jail or, putting them up against firing lines for, you know, what is basically soft genocide, right? Starving your own people because you're nationalizing things like grocery stores and et cetera. So what the Russian government did was they basically said, okay, all you bad people, here's a pension, you're excused. Go live your life somewhere else. Stay in Russia, leave Russia, here's a pension from the government. And I think that we should take a lesson uh, from that book. I don't, if we as a public, I think that the public wants to see all these people in jail, or hung, or life sentences or death sentences. I think the the mass the vast majority of voting Americans would much rather see these people implicated as co-conspirators and perpetrators in the Epstein files. I believe that the majority of the American people want to see these people in jail or dead. And I don't think that we need to necessarily do that. They just need to get the fuck out of politics. They need to get out of power. We can't have these kinds of debaucherous, evil, wretched people running the show. You can't. Um, we've been around for a long time as a species. Community and cultures and economies and currencies have been around for a long, long time. Hacking off 50% of the elected and the bureaucratic isn't going to collapse the country. So I think that that's probably part of the reason why they're not prosecuting, is because they have such a view of their positions that they say, oh my gosh, well, even though me is like, let's say Pam Bondi or Kash Patel, maybe, or the head of the CIA, maybe they're not in any of the Epstein files implicated in any way, um, but they still have this opinion of their position and their colleagues' position where it's like, oh, we're so important, we're too important, this just can't. But bullshit, bullshit. You're just not that important as a politician. You're just not. The only reason why you feel that way is because the people in America, the voting public, falsely give you importance, and that's our fault as the voting public and the citizens of the United States of America. That's our fault. You people don't deserve um, to sit without term limits. I think that something like government should be a compulsory uh, uh, thing, almost like a draft. You get in reluctantly. You just have to do it. You do a good job, you do a bad job, whatever it is, but you're out in 8 years. 8 years, boom, you're gone. And you can toggle it back and forth so that the presidential election lands 50% of the way through other elected officials' um, time in the bench, and and we could sit here and wax specific about term limits. And I think the solution to all this is quite simple. I think that it's just a whole bunch of really arrogant dumbasses that just hold themselves at such high regard, and they have no reason to. I think that that these people just need to go. Um, and then whoever comes in next, I'm not even saying get rid of APAC. You're not going to get rid of them because heads would literally roll if you tried to. Just get new people in, have some term limits, and if they want to become unspeakably wealthy within a matter of months and do bad shit, I guess, whatever. But that game will end up wearing out eventually as well, um, to the point where the next elected official will say, no, I won't take your money. And you'll kind of get, but if it's compulsory, I think you'd actually have less people taking money trying to get rich. I think that they would just get in, try to do their job, and get out so they can get back to their family and their business or their job. Anyway, so that's kind of why I think they're not. It's not the only reason. There's bigger reasons than that, but that is definitely something to consider, in my opinion, is that they think that they're so damned important, and that society and the rest of the world wouldn't be able to run without them. I think that they spend so much time campaigning for funds, um, that if you had half of them, you know, and if you had half of them gone, you just you don't need to campaign for funds 50% of your day. You just got to take on your colleague that just left, take on their responsibilities for the second half of the day. You don't need to campaign for funds if you've got enough press and publicity and enough backing in your district and stuff. I don't know why you got to be on the national stage. If you're a Tennessee or a Wisconsin person, you just need to have your constituency vote for you, and if you do a good job by them, they'll just continue. They'll vote for you. All this theater, all these games is literally what the problem is. Anyway, so Donald Trump seems to be in some hot water. Um, Pam Bondi's a dolt. Cash Patel's an idiot, and all the girls on The View are. Uh, they all need to take a long walk off a short pier. So that's I'll wrap that up because I went pretty heavy on the politics on episode 1, and I'm trying to potentially make this one a little bit shorter. So um, anyway, this is going in the different subject, but still, kind of politic is U.S. in Iran. I don't know personally how to feel about this. I don't like when governments quell their own people. I don't like when governments cull their own herd. Part of the reason why I would like people from the Epstein files to be prosecuted, because I think that things like COVID and whatever. I think that those things are mechanisms to attempt to thin the herd without gassing us or running us over with giant armored vehicles. But the Iranian regime, the United States of America is very, very bad at war after World War II. Very, very bad. We're the worst. We haven't won a conflict. After World War II, we saw Korea, and then after Korea was Vietnam, and we all know how Vietnam went. There was the successful early '90s um, Desert Shield and then Desert Storm. That wasn't very long, and we did have something that could be considered a victory there. But since World War II, that's the only one that I seem to recall that worked out. Um, we've really just been in the business of screwing with other people's way of life, is what we've been doing. And back in the '70s, when we toppled the Iranian government and put the current guy in charge that we're now trying to take him out too. But I believe, admittedly, he's a pretty bad guy. I will tell you this: I have a very strong bias. As I said in the first episode, I spent a few years over in that part of the world. Um, I've seen great Islamic countries, and I've seen really bad Islamic countries. Places like Qatar, however you want to say it, Kuwait, amazing, beautiful, incredible. Turkey, unreal. Kyrgyzstan, however you want to say it, incredible. Um, but there seems to be a propensity for these folks to rule and lead ideologically, or theocratically, rather, to where a most likely bipolar murderer, Muhammad, Prophet Muhammad, may peace be upon his head. Um, I, 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 I think that trying to run a country through a book that tells you to wax all the infidels if they don't believe in your God, I don't agree with that. Um, I in rural parts of Afghanistan, um, children were not treated well, and as you could imagine, women were horribly abused in broad daylight in public. I I have uh, stories about seeing young little girls being caned, whipped, beaten out in front of their house in the market, and you're not allowed to do anything about that at the time. That was something that we as soldiers had to just Charlie Mike. You see that happen, and the right thing to do is to subdue the individual beating a little girl with a stick in front of the house because she comes to the end of the drive to wave at the big trucks and the army guys driving by. And this old man comes out with his cane and just cracks her upside the head a couple times and kicks her. She falls into the dirt. He's kicking this little girl, less than 10 years old. You can't do anything about that. That's a bad country. That's a bad government. That's a bad way to live. You're gonna be in the Stone Age forever if you continue to do that. So I will tell you that my bias does not land in the positive direction with Islam. I don't believe that that is a religion that, I mean, do you? But I do not believe that that is a religion that should be allowed to, hold theocratic rule over anybody. Unpopular opinion. I don't think that U.S. politicians. I think that if you are Islamic, I don't want you running for U.S. politics. Your religion is the antithesis of what the United States stands for. You can see that in Ilhan Omar's rhetoric. She's awful. She's awful. So when it comes to the Iranian regime, the last thing I want to see is war again in that part of the world. We need peace. We need peace. I do agree to a point with peace through strength. But I also think this old guy is going to die soon. And, what we know throughout history is you can't oppress a large group of people past a certain time frame. They're going to rise up. They're going to revolt. And if the people of Iran don't do that, then, they're going to just continue to have all the same problems that they have. Excuse me. The argument of Iran has nuclear capabilities falls dead at my feet. I think that this is just largely an Israeli influence about leading the U.S. into a conflict with Iran. Overall, I don't think that we should have B-2 bombers in the area. I don't think that we should be sitting on standby ready to invade Iran right now. I'm very proud of my military service. It treated me very well. When I enlisted, I was not in the best spot as a young man or as a father. I was a very young father. And the military, I don't regret a bit of it. However, I will say that, I'm on my third marriage, and we've been married for about 14 and a half years. For the first 7 years of my marriage to my current wife, I was gone for a total of 5 years. I was not with my family for 5 years. And there was 11 months that I spent my last time in Afghanistan. That deployment was an absolute waste of my life and my time and the government's money.